I'll start off with a quick introduction. I am Ashley Smith. I am the Director of Architect and Designer Partnerships for Urban Bonfire in Kalamazoo. And this is Design Dialogues, which is a monthly series that I have hosted where I just invite different experts on different outdoor kitchen design topics or outdoor design topics in general, not necessarily outdoor kitchens. Today, we're talking about designing outdoor kitchens specifically with versatility. I have found that I get a lot of the same kinds of questions. And so what we're planning to go through today is to kind of answer some of those common questions that we get from different design professionals. And as usual, I do have an expert to join me today. And so I've asked Anthony Carrino to be my co-host. So I'll let him introduce himself and talk about himself for just a moment.
My favorite thing. Oh boy. Thanks for having me, Ash, and congrats. Like you were just saying before we joined here that this is like 12 months of this now. So you got a full year of webinars under your belt, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for having me. Anthony Carrino, designer and developer and project manager. The development arm now is just personal. I buy old buildings here in Jersey City and Hoboken and renovate them for a rental portfolio that I'm very slowly building. And the public facing side of my business, Anthony Carrino Design and Consulting, is around design, both architectural and interior. And the consulting side is the project management, product consulting. I work on both residential and commercial, so I do a bunch of owners rep work for folks. And am a proud generalist. So I dip my toe in a lot of different ponds. I'm a nuts and bolts guy. I love to understand the way things work, and have found just the detail of this business and the ability to help people and usher people through the process of starting with an empty shell or a piece of dirt and realizing their vision is super fulfilling for me personally. So looking forward to the conversation. And yeah, well, I'm looking at what you have written here, Ashley. There's a solid decade plus of television, but that's not really germane to what we're doing. If you're interested in any of that, my website, anthonycarrino.com, or any of my socials has plenty of my old TV stuff, and you can find that there.
And I'll share everything after with everybody who's here as well. We'll share out any links and everything so that you can follow, join, subscribe, all of those things with Anthony as well. So thank you so much for coming today, Anthony. I really appreciate it. I know we worked on a few projects together, and I feel like your hands-on experience is just going to be so beneficial in talking about the questions that we're going through today. So I'm going to start. We have 4 sections that we're essentially going to go through, and I generalized these questions. They basically all came from a survey that I had sent out to a list of design professionals that we have in our network. So anybody who's part of our program, I sent out a survey, and these were kind of the 4 more or less questions that came back about outdoor kitchens in particular. We've talked about other outdoor design topics and lighting and wellness, and there's so many different topics that we've covered throughout the Design Dialogues webinars. But today I really wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of these specific questions, because I think that they are kind of the next level. We've done a lot of those introductory topics, and this is kind of the getting into the nitty-gritty of it. So the first question that we're going to start with here is how to design with modular cabinetry in mind. This is one that came up fairly often. I'm going to let Anthony go through his points first, but you'll see it's a bit of a conversation. We'll be adding to each other's points as we go through.
Yeah, please interject whenever, Ash. Yeah, so I'm going to be on this. I think I have it on every single slide of mine. Start early. Outdoor, is a different world. I know there are folks who typically focus inside the 4 walls. There are people who focus exclusively outside, and then folks like me who kind of straddle the line. So specifically for the folks who really focus indoors, starting early in our business is paramount to a successful project. Outdoors, I think it's compounded, 2-3x because of the complexities. The slide that we were just on prior is actually my home. It's the first urban bonfire kitchen I designed was for myself. I tend to use myself as a guinea pig a lot, especially when I'm working with a new product, so that I can really execute for my clients when I decide to, if and when I decide to use that product. So, this is a roof deck in an urban environment. I had an EPDM roof under there. I had a floating decking system that went down. I brought gas out for the grill. I didn't want to have propane. You're not really allowed to have propane in multifamily environments in tight city locations. I brought water out. I had to get drainage down that was separate from the roof drain. So when you're dealing with the elements, if you're in someone's yard and you're going to be running a propane line, you've got trenching to consider. So I don't want to belabor it too much here. We're going to be talking a lot about this stuff as we get into it, but suffice it to say, start early. There are a lot of things to consider when you're working in the elements.
I will interject there because
yeah.
Sorry, Anthony. Because
No,
I
we have
think
a little
that's
delay,
where,
so don't worry about it.
yeah, we'll be cutting each other off a little bit. Bear with us, folks. What I think about starting early too, and just that piece of advice is that is where any design professional can add a lot of value, like just by getting ahead of this and saying, have you considered all of these things, or have you planned for, phase B, or which we'll get into a little bit later too. But I think that's where your expertise and the value of hiring a design professional really comes in. It's because they're trying to get ahead of any issues that could happen by not getting involved early enough.
Totally. So, obvious, maybe not so obvious, but understanding all the components that are on offer is key, especially when you're talking about modular, because you do have a set amount of components you can use. I think there's a misconception that can sometimes limit you. At least in my experience, I have not found that, especially with you guys with Urban Bonfire. Like there are enough components. I am familiar enough with all those components that I have yet to find the inability to get something accomplished from a form and function standpoint. So bravo to you guys on that. But obviously understanding all those components are key. One of the examples I like to use is I had reached out to the design team at Bonfire because I was replacing my grill at my house, and I wanted to get a new skirt for the new grill. Because it's a modular system, it was 4 screws. The skirt for the Coyote grill came out. The skirt for the DCS grill went in. Because they do a good job with powder coated aluminum, my 5-year-old kitchen cabinets and the brand new skirt looked identical. I had nothing to worry about. But the person I was interacting with on the design team, whose name is escaping me, I feel bad, let me know that you guys had seamless toe kicks. I had never seen them on the website. I stop by your booth every year at KBIS. I hadn't seen them. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to do that. Like it was awesome. It gave such more custom look to that outdoor kitchen that it was just incredible. So like constantly staying up on what's coming out, what's being developed is really, really powerful. And then, as designers, we like to do it ourselves. It's our vision. We want to get it done. But I will tell you, utilizing the manufacturer design services is key to making sure it all works. I tend to take first pass at all my designs. I don't just hand off raw dimensions and say, hey, can you put a kitchen together for me? I will design it out to what I want to see from a function standpoint, from a look and feel standpoint. And then what I'm looking for is confirmation, that second set of eyes, especially as a solo entrepreneur. I don't have a design assistant. I don't have someone else in my office double checking stuff. So knowing that you guys are there to, 1, double check my drawings, and 2, provide shops that are basically install ready, that I can pass on to my client, pass on to the contractors in advance so they can start to familiarize themselves with the system, is really great. So I like that as well. I'm going to pause just in case you want to interject, Ash, because I know we do have a little delay.
That's perfect. No, thank you. I was going to say,
so
you're all good. And I was going to say too, with the design services, because you said, you like to put the full design together, but really we can do everything in between. Like the design services are really there to meet you where you are as a design professional. So if you're completely comfortable with designing outdoor kitchens, then go ahead, play with our 3D blocks and our 2D blocks and, get into the nitty gritty of it with your clients. But if you're new to it, then you can really just send us a 15-foot cube or rectangle and say, I want a grill, a sink, and a refrigerator, and we will come up with a full design proposal for you. I think that's a service that a lot of outdoor manufacturers, I think, are offering now. I think ours is really well done. We have our biggest team is our design team, to be perfectly honest. So we have a lot of people who are working behind the scenes to make sure that we're getting out these really beautiful designs for all of our clients. And yeah, no matter how much experience you have in the outdoor kitchen world, we're there to assist with whatever information you can provide to us.
Yeah, it is really well done. And I'll say, two things there. One, they always give me to think about sometimes I say, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and I use it. And sometimes I say, yeah, it's a great idea, but my client is real specific in this way, and we're going to keep it as I had it. But like, it's never a bad idea. So like, I love that the design team is as passionate on your end as I am on mine. Like, they're not just churning out the design, they're like thinking about it and wanting to add, how have you thought about this, do you know about that component, adding on an integrated outlet or whatever the case may be. And secondly, they're fast. I don't think I've ever waited more than a couple days to get something back with like full level of detail, elevations, plan view. Like it's a proper design pack. So it's really nice. And Ash, to your point that you were literally just making, my next bullet point is the budget conscious end of the client spectrum. And for those that aren't familiar, Urban Bonfire's got a ton of what's known as their classics line, which are pre-designed configurations. And I think, if memory serves, they're like at a 15 or 20% discount to designing a custom kitchen, because these are repeatable designs that are on offer with no ability to change. I mean, you can pick color A or B, you can pick countertop A or B. So you have some flexibility, but you are constrained. Therein lies the ability to get that discounted price. Looking at not only the classics line, but saying, okay, my client wants a galley and an island. Can I use two classics lines and be able to achieve what they want and meet their budget? So I love that ability, as well. And being that you guys have all the dimensions on the website, sometimes when I'm utilizing that for clients, I'll just take a block, and make sure the dimension is your overall dimension and just drop it in the plan for feel and speed and that ability to continue moving with my overall design, knowing that I've got something that fits, and then I can dig in with my client at a later date. So that's really great as well. Thinking about future iterations, potential changes, I kind of hit on that when I was talking about the swapping of my own grill. Modular systems are great in that way, in that so long as your client isn't going from a 36-inch grill to a 48-inch grill, because that makes it a little more complicated, you have the ability to swap out the skirt, so long as you can make the proper cuts in the countertop without having to remove that. And utilizing it for myself and having that aha moment was really great. Like, you spend all this time, effort, energy, money designing and building a beautiful outdoor kitchen that's going to stand the test of time. And then, like me, I wound up hating my Coyote grill. So when it came time to buy a different one, I made that call, and then that component was readily available. And because of the powder coating, at the risk of repeating myself here, because of the powder coating, everything had a really, really consistent look, which was key.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest takeaway, or what we really try to promote when we're talking about a modular system, is that it's meant to grow with you. So, as a new griller, maybe somebody doesn't know what kind of barbecue they want. Maybe they had a bad experience with one and they want to try a different one. And I think that's one of the really nice things about a modular system, is that it allows for that flexibility. It's, if you had this in a stucco island or a masonry island, you would have to basically start over or find something with the exact same cutout, which is not that easy to do. There are some that have
No.
similar cutouts in the market, but to find something that has the exact same is really challenging. So I would say I think that's like a huge takeaway with modular cabinetry is that it's flexible, it's adaptable. You can take it with you if you move. A lot of people don't because they love their outdoor kitchen experience and they want to redesign it for their new home. But all of these things are possible. And when you were talking about the classics and custom designs, that reminded me of one project that we did where we were working with a professional chef. And so they were really particular about the appliances that they wanted. And so they did a custom like cooking island. So the cooking side was purely custom, but they wanted a galley style kitchen and they didn't really care about what was in the island side. They just wanted it to be storage. And so they chose one of the classics islands, but we're able to get that, savings that you had talked about, that 15 to 20%, but then they had their fully customized island too. And there are a lot of those prefabs out there that are on the market, like not just with our classics layouts. And so I think if you're working with somebody who is budget conscious, think about those mixing and matching. And that could be a really good way to achieve something amazing but still coming in on budget. We covered a lot of the points that I was going to kind of touch on through the conversation with Anthony, but I really, as somebody who is new to outdoor kitchen design, which I imagine some people on the call are, really just focus on the overall dimensions and the general appliance list because our design teams this is what they do. This is what they do all day, every day. And there's so many little nuances of things that we know just through experience that we don't want you to have to go through, especially if you're a small team. I completely understand if you do want to be involved in the design process and you want to learn, and we're happy to go through that with you. And you'll see a lot of design teams will try to set up a call with you so that they can kind of explain their thoughts or why they did things certain ways. I think that's not necessarily unique to Urban Bonfire, but certainly something that we try to add. We really want to add the value there where we can so that you can learn from our experience.
Ash, I could drop in one more piece as well, which is, when I designed my kitchen for the first time I worked with you guys, I started with you earlier. I accepted a ton of different suggestions from the design team. So like they will work in an iterative process. You don't have to like accept their first design and it's all done. Like you're not overburdening them. It's what they're there for. And number two, I would say the more I worked with the design team, the better I learned, the better I knew and faster I understood all the products that were available to me. So if you start working with the design team, you'll find that you actually need them less the more you work with this product and the more you design outdoor kitchens.
Yeah, exactly. We see that a lot with the people that we work with. It's like, oh, I've asked this question before. Hang on, like I know the answer to this. I know how to solve this particular puzzle, which is amazing. Like we're happy to pass on that knowledge. If you were part of the webinar last week, I did talk a lot about the human component of outdoor kitchen design. And so really quickly, I'm just going to say, learn the homeowner's lifestyle, understand what they want to achieve in the kitchen, because this will really determine the best way to build the outdoor kitchen for your particular client. And again, the best design is the intentional design, the design that is really meant and designed for your particular client. That is the most successful design that you can do. We hope that that's a modular system, but for certain people, it's not. And we completely understand that. And that's why it's really important to have that conversation and to understand how your client will use the kitchen and the different appliances and things that are available to go into it. My last point really quickly is just to consider alternative uses. So outdoor cabinets, you think outdoor kitchen, but it's really just a storage solution. So in the example that you see on the right here, this is just a bar. There's no cooking appliance in this particular kitchen. There's a separate kitchen that does have a grill in it, but this is next to the dining table. And so this is where the clients are storing all of their cutlery and all of their serving bowls and things like that. And it's really acting more as that like sidebar to the dining room than it is for the actual kitchen. I've seen somebody use it as a gardening station too. So it just has a sink, it has a few cabinets, and that's where they're leaving all of their pots and soil. And it just is a really nice place to tuck everything away and have it as really easy access. And then just any sort of like outdoor storage, if you want to put soccer balls or pool noodles or, anything like that in it, it can really be a great alternative. So the modular system, more than just a kitchen, that's the takeaway from this slide. For the second question, it's what is the best approach to integrating custom components? So there are certain applications that we come through that, the modular system might not be the best option, or it's a variety. So you might have some custom components with the modular kitchen. So we're just going to go into kind of some tips and tricks that you can consider when you are using those like mixed materials and custom with the modular. So take it away, Anthony.
Yeah. So for me, I just always take the mindset that everything is custom. I, I don't care be trained by, certain cabinet sizes that Urban Bonfire has or not, or I'm designing something that is truly completely custom. I always look at the design I want to accomplish for my client as custom in the sense that everybody wants something different. Everybody has different existing conditions. Everybody has the dimensions they're working with. So we as designers have to make this space work. Full stop. That's it. We're going to make the decision on what product to use based on all the things I just said. So I just take the mindset that everything is custom and I work through my entire design process. In order to achieve that goal. When I do have somebody that is very budget conscious or is asking me to explore, will I be able to make this work in my budget? That's when it's a lot easier to pull from the classics line, show folks, a couple of different designs, that are prefabbed, let them know about the discount and pull some pricing. That's where maybe you're not the one instance where I wouldn't be deploying my entire design process. And then generally speaking, I find, and this goes for the entire house, I imagine most folks listening would agree that your client, if they are opinionated, as most are, has their non-negotiable. Everybody has a non-negotiable in the room. You're in a living room, it's somebody's antique coffee table or whatever it is, or this certain fireplace that they want to integrate. Outside it could be the pool has to be this dimension, or this fire feature here in this way, or this is the gazebo we're using. Whatever it is, that's the thing that we're meant to plan around. I am a firm believer in doing our best not to let our clients make mistakes. So I certainly push back on clients, even when it is their non-negotiable. I don't try and remove the non-negotiable. I try and utilize it in a better way. I try and position it in the best way possible. But understanding that allows you to plan around the thing that is most important to them. And then for me, this is partly because I'm a solo entrepreneur. This is partly because I'm a tech nerd. And this is partly just because it's super, super efficient. I scan every space that I work in now, inside and out. I'm a big Matterport user. I utilize their Pro 3 camera, which gives me LiDAR indoors and outdoors. So I have scale accurate dimensions. And the real benefit there for me is that when I'm in a design flow, I'm on a dual monitor setup and I'm designing in my design software, I keep the 3D model of the space up. So if I ever think I missed a dimension, or I'm misremembering something, or I'm just not quite sure of an existing condition, I've got the digital twin on my machine. I am not coming out of my design flow. I am not getting in the car to drive 5 minutes or 50 minutes to a client site to revisit something. It's not a static photograph. I take that hour or 30 minutes or whatever it is, and I scan the entire space so that I can virtually walk around that site anytime I need to, which I have found is really, really powerful. It has saved me countless hours. Not to mention, as you progress with your design, I find that subs absolutely love this. So rather than them getting in their car to come give a quote or look at something, I send my plan set with the digital twin, and that allows these folks, what their trade is, to get a peripheral understanding of the site, look at the plan I want to accomplish, start to digest things. By the time we meet on site, we're having substantive conversation that's reducing the amount of time on site, that's reducing the amount of visits to site. So I will leave the last one there with my little smirk, because I think I beat it pretty good on that first slide I talked about it, but just start early.
We did have a question that came in, Anthony, and it's about Matterport. So I'm just going to pose it to you now. So the question is just what Matterport hardware do you use specifically?
Yep, it's their Matterport Pro 3 camera. So it comes with a head and the camera itself, and then you screw that on a quarter 20 screw, I think, but you're putting it on a tripod. It's a very easy process to learn for anybody who's not familiar with it. It's basically a camera that sits on a tripod. It spins around. It takes 4 pictures, maybe 20 seconds per scan. So you basically place it down and you either walk around behind the camera so you're not in the shot, or you hide behind a wall if you're indoors. And then you pick the camera up and you move it, and you continue to do that. So what you're doing is you're capturing high fidelity HD images, and it's also got a LiDAR sensor in it. So it's a laser. So that laser bounces off objects, and based on the time it takes that laser to get back to the camera, it understands the dimension. It's within, I believe, you have to look at the spec page on the Matterport website, but I believe it's within 1% of accurate. I field test this all the time. I get a model back and I have a measurement that I've taken so I can double check myself. I don't use these models for the shop drawings that we're discussing with the Urban Bonfire design team. I use this to get my design started, to start moving the design process forward. When it comes to shops and finites, I get in there with my tape measure where I need to. But it saves me having to field measure existing conditions at all. I don't do it anymore.
Amazing. It's so technology. It's like so helpful.
It's
really made our lives
great.
so much more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, the Pro 3 is not cheap. It's a little bit of an expense to get started with it, but it's pretty awesome. It does work with standard 360 cameras. The problem there is that you don't have the LiDAR with that. So if you're a professional and you're depending on accuracy, it becomes difficult. If you're field measuring your site and you only care about having that digital twin to reference for visuals, you'd be totally fine with a $300-400 360 camera.
Amazing. Thank you for that tip. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
I know we used the Matterport for one of our booths, and it was really cool to see that come together.
Yeah.
To see the behind
that
the
was
scenes.
A fun one to scan for you guys. Yeah, that was great.
So to add to the custom components, just things that I've seen a little bit, and if you've heard me talk before, you've heard me say this 100 times, mixed materials. I really like kitchens that have mixed materials just because it's such a good way to integrate your kitchen into the existing landscape, into the existing architecture, and it really makes it feel intentional and cohesive. So I will say that, kind of, or sometimes the best practice is really having the cabinetry where you need it, where you need that functionality and you want to have that storage. But then everything else can be those custom components so that you can have your wood storage, like you see on the right-hand side here. This is a custom component. We have other people who might want to integrate different kinds of specialty cooking equipment, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But it's, not just because it's modular doesn't mean that every single piece of it has to be modular, and vice versa. Just because it's custom doesn't mean that every single piece of it has to be custom. Choose the best material for the project and choose the best, products for the project. And then mixing them together can really be the kind of best solution there.
Ash, I'll put you on the spot a little bit with a question because I actually don't know the answer to this one. So if I've got a bunch of custom components that I'm going to design into a kitchen, can I share those with the Urban Bonfire design team, and then they'll help me integrate your cabinetry into it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of the time, if we don't know exactly what it is, we'll just show it as like a block or a box that is the dimension of the custom component that's going to be in there. But if we know that
if I emailed you like a link to I was going to say, like, if I emailed you like a link to a 3D model manufacturer website, they'll pull that and put it right in the drawing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Depending how far along we are in the process, if it's the preliminary, we'll typically show it just really rudimentary. Sure. And then as the iterations go along, then we try to make it as representative of the project as possible. So we do try to do that. Anytime there's some sort of stone surround, or, some people like to do those stone corners, or you'll see we integrate stone a lot into a lot of the Kalamazoo projects in particular. We do show that because you want to be able to picture it all together. It's a sales tool at the end of the day. So the better your client can visualize, the more excited they get.
Amen.
So I would say that a lot of people, when you think about modular systems, we've touched on this already, they think it's really standardized and inflexible, but that's really not the case. And often the best solution is a little bit of a mix of custom with modular. And modular can be custom as well. As Anthony said, there's a lot of different things that we can do, and it's not as limiting as people originally think. So I mentioned specialty cooking appliances when I was talking a little bit, and I think this is something that we're seeing more and more of. And so I think it's great to get ahead of this because the trends are really moving to have basically every single cooking appliances seems to be available outdoors now, which I think is amazing. So our question number 3, our lesson 3 is how do you seamlessly incorporate specialty cooking appliances into a modular kitchen? So we're going to show a couple of examples here, but I'll let Anthony go first based on his experience.
Oh, I was going to say, if you want to drive this one, because admittedly, I kind of piggybacked onto your slide. I thought you hit the points so well. Having two slides for this one I mean, I think everybody knows the last point is mine, and the one above is mine. But yeah, Ash, if you want to have this one, I'd be actually curious to listen to you on this, and I'll happily interject. But
Yeah,
I haven't done a ton of specialty cooking appliances, so I'll listen to the pro on this one.
perfect. This is based on questions that we get, and we do have a compatibility team. And I will say that we rely on them a lot to tell us what we can and cannot do. There are so many new pieces of equipment that are coming out, almost daily, it feels like right now. And there's so many more brands that are coming out into the outdoor world. So we don't know everything, but we will verify specs and we can certainly tell you if it is compatible with what we're working with. I will say the first point is to consider whether or not the specialty equipment is meant to be built in. We do get requests quite often to build in like a smoker, like a freestanding smoker. And it's not as easy as just taking it off of its existing stand and putting it into a cabinet because there's ventilation that you need to consider. There's accessibility that you need to consider. There's probably wires or, an area that you need to be able to clean out or be able to access. So if it's not meant to be built in, don't put it in a cabinet is kind of my first general rule of thumb. What I find can be a really successful solution, which you see in this first slide here, is that you have that pizza oven that's just to the left of the kitchen. It's on its own cart. Sometimes these pizza ovens are really, really, really heavy. And so they need a bit more support or they need some sort of like specialty cart that goes along with them. But with this kind of application, you still have all of the advantages of having a kitchen because you have the preparation space and you have the storage space, but then you have the piece of specialty equipment on the base that it needs to be on. So this one, I mean, it's a countertop one, so probably could have gone on the countertop. Like I said, it may have been a case of it being really heavy because we are seeing those in pizza ovens on the market. But I think that is just kind of a good solution for something that's not supposed to be built in. And that's the first consideration, I would say, when you're looking at these specialty equipment. Understand the features and determine if dedicated equipment is necessary. So what I mean by that is that sometimes people get really excited about these specialty cooking equipment, like maybe a flat top grill as an example. But then you ask them, how many times a year do you think you'll use a flat top grill versus a traditional grill? And they'll say, maybe 3 times, like really trying to figure out how to make those smash burgers. And so instead of having a full dedicated flat top, then what you can do is get an insert that goes into your traditional grill. So this goes back also to my first slide about understanding your client's lifestyle and getting to know how they're going to use the kitchen. It can be really exciting to see all of these options and they really want to be able to use all of these outdoors, but they might not, I think is what it comes down to. If they're adamant about it, if it's like what Anthony said, if it's their like absolute must have, then for sure include that into it, but just get an understanding of if it's a cool factor that they think that they're going to use right now versus something that they really will really use long term. I touched on this a little bit before, but account for weight. So some of these pizza ovens that we're seeing, mostly pizza ovens more than anything else because they're brick or they're stone and they're massive, they can be thousands of pounds. And so you don't want to be putting something that is thousands of pounds on top of a cabinet without any additional support around it. We have seen some applications where we've built in additional support around the countertop, so that is what really is holding the weight of the particular item. But then you do have a cabinet underneath, so there are ways to get around it. It doesn't mean that you can't use a modular system if you're using something really heavy. It's just we'll have to think a little bit outside of the box in those particular applications. Account for clearances. So this isn't just specialty appliances. Go ahead, Anthony.
I was just going to say two things on built-in versus countertop appliances. So, just to state maybe the not so obvious, like when Ashley's talking about built-in appliance, like it is either stated by the manufacturer that the appliance can be built in, or it goes on a cart. That's it, or sits on the countertop. Built-in means like it it can accommodate the sufficient amount of ventilation to be within a cabinet, and then it'll give you the guidelines around clearances, materials, and flammability stuff. The other thing, and this is literally the perfect photo to have on this slide with the Asado, and you saw it on the previous slide as well. But this is the perfect example of a countertop appliance that looks built in, because you've got the lower cabinet. And this is one of the things that the design team helped me out with I know whose kitchen this is because I helped the kitchen. um, but this is the same style I have, and she loved it in my kitchen. It was because of you guys like helping me understand when I was new to the product that drop cabinet and getting the Asada height is really beneficial. It's really great when you're working with those larger side burners for folks that like to do crab boils and big lobster pots and whatnot, if they're cooking at the shore or whatever. I'm from New Jersey, so I say the shore. And the other, and I have a smaller pizza oven that was just fine to go on standard countertop height, and it worked out great. But my point is, like, there is a lot of nuance. So, like, while that Asado looks beautifully built in, like, that's a countertop appliance. So, starting early and like really understanding all of that stuff. And this is stuff that the design team will help you work through. If you're not asking the questions, those questions are going to come up from them because they ask for your full list of appliances. And if they don't see the ability for that appliance to be built in, they're going to raise that flag on your behalf.
Yeah, exactly. I think the egg that you see here is a great example too of something that if you had wanted to put this in a cabinet, then you wouldn't have the full features of it, because that bottom kind of slat that you see in stainless, that's part of the ventilation. So you need to be able to open that up to get the cross ventilation from the top to the bottom so that you're stoking your fire.
Yeah, that's the entire draw. That's charcoal. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But then you have people who have it, in a hole in a countertop that has a front in it, and then you can't use that feature, which I'm sure they realize that quite quickly the first time that they try to light it, and it keeps going out, or they have no control over the temperature. So yeah, just these things to consider. And like I said, we have a compatibility team because we get these questions all the time. And so we are constantly learning as we go along as well. And if you do have any questions, then reach out to us because we're happy to tell you based on what we've learned. The clearances, it's when you're looking at appliances like these Kamados, it's the lid clearance often that you have to account for. So especially if it's against a wall like this, typically you'll need more clearance because the lid opens behind, not like a range in your indoor kitchen. You're not lifting up a lid, so you don't need to account for that. That's why outdoor kitchens are typically about 30 inches deep to begin with, just to account for those lid clearances. And then most of the specifier clearances that are listed on the spec sheets are to combustible surfaces. So just keep that in mind as well. There's always that extra, 6 inches to 24 inches, depending on the cabinet and on the appliance itself. And so you just need to account for that clearance if it is to a non-combustible surface. If it's, to a combustible surface. If it's non-combustible, it tends to be quite a bit less, and it's that, again, lid clearance so that you can open it up properly.
Ash, I find utilizing your urban bonfire backsplash like just alleviates all combustibility problems. Like this is the way this kitchen is designed is very similar to what we saw on the first slide at my house on the roof deck. Fence, which has very low flame spread to begin with, but still it's wood. I utilized the urban bonfire now I've got, full marine grade aluminum on the back there. I no longer have combustibility issues. So it's a really simple, elegant solution. Everything's tied in. Everything is color matched and works beautifully. And because it is a modular system, you can get the backsplashes in different heights. So my backsplash is not as tall as the one we're looking at in this photo, but it is something you can achieve. So based on the desires of the client, your creativity, et cetera, it's a great simple solution, and it's a really simple one to install too.
Yeah. What we love about this too is that even if it doesn't meet the criteria, because there's different bylaws, and so some of them are more strict than others, you can put like a cement board behind this, and often that is that fits the requirement, because then you have that double layer of protection to anything combustible. So again, always check the bylaws, but this can be a really great way to protect that surface that's behind for sure. Did you
Yeah,
want to talk
and
about
just
fuel?
yeah, I did actually. You took the words thought right out of my head. The only point I really had there, because we touched on it at the beginning, we're planning an outdoor kitchen. You're going to need gas. You're going to need potentially need water, et cetera, electricity. This is really for, in my mind, more for the wood burning specialty appliances. I personally love integrating the wood storage into the urban bonfire design because of how clean. A product and a design material it is. So like typically I'll do like an open cabinet underneath, for example, the Sasato. I would do an open cabinet, with a wood stack in there. It's a beautiful visual. I love the wood playing against the metal, and like being able to show off the fuel that is functional as part of the design, is
Mhm.
something that just appeals to me and my design sensibility. Just figured I would mention that as well.
Oh, that's great. We see that a lot with the Kalamazoo equipment too, because we have the hybrid fire grill and we have the gaucho grill,
Yep.
and you want to be able to access that wood so that you can use those components with it. So we definitely see that quite a bit on that side of things. And wood is a beautiful natural material at the end of the day, so it does add
Yeah.
a
Well,
nice design aesthetic.
and from a functional standpoint, like especially with a pizza oven, like you're using so much wood throughout at least when we make pizzas. I mean, we got it's like a bomb goes off at our house. So so we like to have a lot of wood there specifically for that night to keep feeding that fire and keep that stone nice and hot.
Amazing. So we're coming up on our fourth question here, and we're doing pretty well with time. We have about
Yes.
15 minutes left. So the last question, and we've covered this a bit just by saying get ahead of it, plan ahead, start early. But how should plumbing and electrical elements be accommodated? So, well, I'll let you take this away for the first part.
Yeah, sure. So, I provide a full set of drawings. I don't. We always have an architect of record on the job because I'm not a licensed architect. But what I have found is that my clients, and more specifically and more importantly, the subs, appreciate the level of detail that I put on the plans. I'm also taking weekly site visits. I'm also in communication with them through the project management arm of what I do. So I'm actively problem solving and conflict resolving through the entire process. So when they need something, I turn a drawing around very quickly. So when I say provide a full set of drawings inclusive of MEPs, this is something that I'm giving them to make sure that we've got absolutely every T crossed and I dotted. Yes, it's got to line up with architect of record. We've got to make sure we're not straying too far from anything. But in a world where, you're in the field, you come across a conflict, you have to move a trench or you have to do something a bit differently, you are permitted to make that change, document it, and then have the architect of record go back, draw it as built, and then resubmit that as a plan update. So just, for your own edification and peace of mind, like it's not illegal to do, and it does keep your project moving and, and your client's anxiety level down quite a bit. The most important thing that I do, and I do it on the indoors too. If it's a lighter renovation, I'll use paint. If it's a full gut, I'll use my spray can. But I spray every cabinet. I spray every MEP, both line and terminate point, so that there is zero confusion. When you're talking about digging trenches, when you're talking about putting holes in roofs, when you're talking about the amount of work that goes into getting a mechanical to a location in an outdoor environment, spray paint is your best friend. I think I can leave it there.
It's always good to have that visual point of reference because then there can be no confusion.
Yeah, well, there's a million things that are going on, and as much as I mean, pride myself on my attention to detail, there's always something that happens on a construction site. Somebody made a change that didn't get communicated, and they had to do that because of something else that happened before that. So by the time you're getting to the install of the materials for this outdoor kitchen, maybe your trench is crossing another trench. You just don't know. So putting that visual reference on the ground and talking through it with the stakeholders is really, really beneficial.
Yeah, I think this actually ties in really nicely to my first point, which is that plan in advance, which again, we've covered, but it's outdoor kitchens tend to be the last thing that gets installed. It's after all of the landscaping goes in, it's after the pool goes in, it's after everything else is already there. And so the earlier you know about it and the earlier you know that it will be part of the kitchen, then the better you can plan for it. And so that you're making sure that you're not taking up your paving stones after you just put them in because you forgot to run your electrical lines or you forgot to put in a drain for your sink or things like that. So really, even if it ends up being a phase two, which I have as a lower point down here, if you know that the kitchen isn't going in the first year, but that they do want to put it in the next 5 years, plan all of those electrical and plumbing lines and just have them there so that when the client is ready for it, then you don't have to be ripping anything up.
You know what, Ash? It's a great point, and I can illustrate it really easily. So when I was working at my house in the Catskills, we had my property is bony as all hell, and it just means there's rocks everywhere in my yard. So while the excavator was there with big machinery, having ripped up the entire lawn, and it was about to be reseeded, while those trenches were open, I said to the electrician, I said, you know what? Please throw in an extra empty conduit here with a pull line and throw it in the other trench with a pull line. I've used one of them already. I installed solar on the house, and these guys were looking at me like, we have to dig an effing trench from here to there. I said, no. I said, I got an empty conduit in there for you, boys. And suffice it to say, they were pretty thrilled that they were not digging by hand a 60-foot trench in a very, very rocky. So yeah,
Yeah, you
that
were a
forethought
hero.
is absolutely key. Totally. But one other point I want to piggyback on, and it triggered when you said, the kitchen cabinets are the last thing to get installed. Yes, but those mechanicals need to be installed prior to your rough inspection. So I tend to spray that kitchen out in the yard. Like when I'm doing my layouts for everything, when I'm doing my layout for the indoor kitchen, I'm spraying the outdoor kitchen out. Even probably before that, I would say after demolition is done, if site work is going on, spray paint is on the ground, because it is such a massive time span between when the beginning of that work needs to happen and when the end of that work does happen. That again, that spray paint winds up being your best friend.
Yeah. And I say that it's the last thing installed, but often it is thought about at the same time as the indoor kitchen because you have your appliance bundle or you're buying all of your equipment all at the same time and things like that. But yeah, because it's the last thing installed, then not always accounted for as
But
much as it should be.
and I
Um,
would even push back and say that you need to think about the outdoor kitchen before you're thinking about the indoor kitchen, because when you're in a house that has a basement or rafters or whatever, you've got fairly relatively easy places to run mechanicals. You want
mhm.
to add a pot filler. All right, you make a little hole in the sheetrock, you drop a water line, now everybody's happy, you got your pot filler. If you forgot a gas line or a drain line, let's say you've sprayed new seed down and you're ready to go, and like you're waiting for the grass to grow and the patio's in and ready, and you're ripping up lawn that's going to take another 4 months to grow. You're going to have this big bare patch of your lawn. So like it's really critical to do it as early humanly possible, from a planning perspective.
I mean, I love that. I think that's the motto of this. Plan your outdoor kitchen before your indoor kitchen. That's what people are going to start doing.
As long as there's no budget concerns, I 100% subscribe to that.
I think that plays really nicely into one of the points that I have here too, as well. And I said consider budget because that is a consideration when you are determining the placement of the kitchen. How far you have to run these lines will affect the cost of running the lines. You have to, as Anthony mentioned, you have to dig that trench. You have to put in those conduits. The more tubing and hosing and all of that stuff that you need to put in there, there is a cost associated to that. So if you do have a client who's a bit more cost conscious, put the kitchen closer to the home because the lines are already there. If it's against the house, then often you can, really easily access that just through the existing structure. But if you do have to run it, you're not running it nearly as far. And so that's a huge consideration, especially when it comes to budget. And then for the interior designers on the call, I think when it can be overwhelming or a little bit maybe intimidating to try to design an outdoor kitchen, but it's really consider indoor kitchen principles. Like so many of those guidelines do apply outdoors as well. It's really just the materials that are different. And once you get to know that, you'll really find your rhythm. And I think it'll come really easily to you because it's a modular system. You know how to use this, you know how to design with these particular items. And so don't let the material of it intimidate you. I do have a question.
They're actually easy. They're actually easier to install than indoor cabinets. Way easier to install.
Yeah, I installed both my indoor cabinets and my outdoor cabinets. And of course, I've worked in the outdoor kitchen world for 9 years. So I do have some bias towards that, but I did have an easier time doing the outdoor kitchen cabinets than my indoor ones.
No question.
We did have a question that came in. And so it says, how are the areas of stone veneer incorporated into the prefab units? So I don't think there's one answer to this necessarily. And Anthony, I can let you add on after I've kind of said my 2 cents here. We've seen it done a variety of ways. The first way, because a lot of the cabinets are made to order, what we've seen is that because we can provide those exact dimensions, that the outdoor or the outside veneer will be fabricated at the same time as our cabinets. And so then when the cabinets arrive, they're really just sliding into place. And so it's really its own structure. On the flip side of that, we've seen kitchens that have had like a wood veneer on the back or something that's a little bit more lightweight, where people have just put furring strips and then they're just attaching the cladding to those like furring strips or pieces that they're attaching to the cabinets themselves. So it really depends on kind of how much of it is custom and kind of the application of it. But I would say more often than not, the custom piece is really its own structure, and then you're fitting in the cabinetry just by sliding it into place. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Anthony.
No, that's exactly the way. I mean, yeah, it's its own structure, and then basically the countertop is tying everything together there.
Yeah. So follow-up question. In this photo, you're saying that you guys did the veneers. No. So we only provided the what you see in stainless for this particular application. All of the stonework that you see was done separately. So that was a custom component of it.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what? Like, this is a perfect example of like, if this is me. I mean, this is not my aesthetic. Like, I really love using I love the modern outdoor juxtaposition of the modern outdoor kitchen opposed to nature with the greens playing against the blacks or the white. It just looks so beautiful. That aside, if this was my kitchen and I was designing / project managing this, I'm taking all the components that I'm going to be purchasing and I'm bringing that to an early job meeting with whoever will be doing the outdoor. It's just for argument's sake, the general contractor. And I'm sitting down saying, how do you want me to show the veneer sections? Like, how are you planning on building this? So my guess is they're taking pressure treated 2x material, probably on the flat, tap conning down into either concrete or pavers. So they have a nice rigid surface, and then they're going to frame up like any framing. And top of that, and you can see that the veneer sections are wider. And I assume that's for lateral load and making sure that the lumber isn't going to twist so much. So they're going to frame that using their expertise. As you apply the stone, the masonry board, as you apply the veneer, as you apply the countertop, everything tightens up real quick, and it's got a nice seamless look. But I think that seamless look is achieved by saying, you're an expert in framing. I don't exact process is. How are you going to do this? I will represent it that way on my drawings, so we can integrate this thing. Anytime I get myself in a situation where I'm either doing something for the first time or just really unsure, I just tend to over communicate.
That's a great call. Yeah. And we're really happy. I think you're never bugging us. Like, we're really happy to talk to everybody who's involved in the project, including the contractor who really is installing on site and who is going to be installing these. So the earlier that we can communicate with them so that they have an understanding of, where kind of our cabinetry stops and what they're doing begins, I think the better. And yeah, over communicating that and just oversharing all of that information, I think is key to a successful implementation there. So, conclusion really quickly, if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the question and answer. I know it's been kind of coming through as we've gone along, but now is your last chance. We got a couple minutes left. Start early. If you didn't notice, this is something that we definitely recommend. Start early and plan thoroughly. Really get an understanding of the client and the space, because again, the most successful designs are the ones that are intentionally designed for your client, and not every client is the same. So not every kitchen will be the same. We don't want them to be. That world would be very boring. So we want it to be unique to your client and their use case. Design with flexibility in mind. So modular does not mean inflexible. It can absolutely achieve what you are looking for. Leverage the full design process. We have a full in-house design team. There's so many different tools and resources out there as well. We have lots on our website. I provide these monthly webinars that hopefully people come away with, a few tips and tricks that they can apply to their daily projects. Be budget smart without compromising vision. I think this is really important, especially in outdoors, because outdoor materials have to be really durable. And so they tend to be a little bit more expensive. And that just means hopefully that it's going to last. And so sometimes it really is worth having that bigger upfront investment to make sure that it's not something that you're having to maintain or replace over time. And then apply proven kitchen design principles. I can't stress this enough. An outdoor kitchen is a kitchen outside. That's it. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Anything that you know about indoor kitchens, you really can apply to the outdoor world. It's really just the materials. That's the biggest difference. Did you want to add anything there, Anthony?
You nailed it. I love it.
Awesome. So I'll leave this image up just at the end. You can see it's another one that we have that's stone clad. I told you we do incorporate that a lot, just because it can totally change the design aesthetic. When you think metal cabinetry, you think modern, but depending on the surround that it's in, it can totally camouflage into a different design.
I think this is a great execution of stone. Like the fact that it's built into the stone wall looks really, really gorgeous.
Yeah, we love
That's
these
awesome.
ones. And This is why I always say I think some of my favorite projects are those like multi-material projects, just because it gives a different dimension to it. It gives a little bit more texture.
It sure does. It sure does.
All right. We've got a few people who have said thank you. Thank you so much to everybody who attended. I see some of you have already dropped off. Words. Yeah, it's really amazing. I'm really happy to have some of you who come every month. Like, I see some familiar names on the sheet here, which is really nice to see. To everybody whose first time it is, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to see you again next week or next month, I should say. And thank you again to Anthony. I really appreciated it.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the kind words, guys. And hope it was useful and informative.